Test. Yeah, I definitely need the microphone. I'm not so loud. Okay, so I did this presentation in Germany before, in our Berlin event. And I didn't rehearse it in English. I hope I can manage it. If I struggle to find words, please help me out. So I'm basically doing the same presentation as Sean. I'm also talking about my background and how I came to street photography and how, I want to say the GR changed my life, but it sounds a little too dramatic. But it changed how I approach photography. And there's a little small project, which is the cover photo here, which I think showcases what I like about the GR, what I think is so special about it. All right, so a little bit of background information. So I studied graphic design, communications design, and I had a photography teacher, and I was into photography, and he encouraged me to go freelance. And I started doing wedding photography and events, portraits. And this is the kind of gear I was lugging around. Most of it was rented, but I had a 5D. I was still doing personal projects, but I didn't even know exactly what the term street photography means. I've never heard it. I knew about, Gordon Parks and all these old legendary photographers, but I wasn't really sure that it is a genre in itself. So photography didn't really pay the bills until I added videography to it, and I assisted in a few video productions. For a short time I also had my own video production company. You might recognize the guy in the middle. He's a friend of mine, Bello. He showed up in some of my old videos. And he and I, for example, first met each other during a video shoot, and I was assisting him. And then we worked so well together that we started working more together, and then through that we built a friendship. But this is a Ricoh GR photo, of course, and I just had my the first APS-C GR was the one in 2013, right? And I just had it in my pocket, like I have my GS3X here now. And so that was around 2013, 14. And for me, when I went on these productions, I always wished that someone would photograph us or the set, so we can, first of all, remind ourselves how we built the set so we can replicate it, but also because it's cool and I want to have some memories of it. And phones at that time weren't so great, so having a small camera that can produce decent images was nice to have. So here a few behind the scenes shots. That was probably during a hot summer day, and they were covering the monitor, and I just stuck my GR into under the blanket and didn't even see what I was taking photos of, and that's what came out of it, and thought it was very cool. Yeah, and as I said, equipment and setups, that's what I was documenting. And I was doing this while I was also in the middle of the production. So here, for example, I was the behind-the-scenes videographer, so I was in charge of documenting this live stream event here. But it's easy to have a video camera on one hand on a tripod, and then you can quickly take a photo. So this is how these photos came to be. Another making-of photo. And this was actually useful because we had to replicate this setup 2 times a year, and that was helpful to have an image of the lighting. Yeah, and I was also using my 5D for videography. I don't know if you remember, the 5D was this revolutionary cinematic camera that shoots full frame, and that was for video people, that was something you could only get with, I think some of the Alexa cameras or the proper cinema cameras. But full frame video wasn't that common. So everyone was using the 5D for productions. I'm also included this photo here because on the top right you can see my smartphone photo. And then this is shot obviously on the GR. And to me it just looks better. And I have an iPhone now, an iPhone 13, and I don't think it even comes close to the GR. I'm really disappointed. Yeah, a few more behind the scenes photos. And what I was also doing a lot was taking my GR and putting it on a little Jobo tripod, you know, the one with the, you know what I mean. And I was using the interval mode to take photos like every 5 seconds or so. And that way I was able to be in the frame as well. And it doesn't bother the client or the production. And because I was often the only guy who had a camera, a proper photo camera with me, I also took group photos after the production. Okay, so we're slowly going into street photography or documentary photography. This is the airport in Barcelona. I think I was transiting and I had my trolley and I just saw this beautiful light and I thought, wow, this looks cool. And I just took a photo and then moved on, and later I realized, oh wow, I have this file that is, I mean, this is 60 megapixel, the first APS-C GR, but it is super sharp, the lens is so sharp, and compared to my 5D, it was, I would say it's on par. It really didn't matter if I took this on a GR or on my 5D, but because it was the GR and it is in my pocket, for me that was kind of an eye-opener. Oh, I can take pictures now wherever I go. And then this is Hamburg, my hometown, or technically it's my ex-hometown now, but I live close to it. So after all doing these behind-the-scenes photos, I stumbled upon, you know, Daido Murayama, and because he's a GR, known for using a GR, Ricoh made me their ambassador. So I was like, oh, I should probably own up to this title and get into some snap shooting, because I don't know if you know this, but in Japan, street photography is not really a term that is being used. They just call it snap photography, snapshot photography. So the GR, I'm assuming most of you guys are doing street photography, but in Japan they have a whole culture around snapshot photography, and street is just another subgenre of it. So yeah, inspired by Murayama and other snapshot photographers, I just took my camera out when I was doing any shopping and stuff, just trying to document the city and not really focusing on people. That came much later. So whenever I see interesting light, I just took a photo and to document my surroundings. And then 2015, I went to Paris with my brothers. We just took a vacation in Paris. And of course my only camera, because it's light and small, was my GR. And then I thought, oh, let's try some street photography. And I just picked up the book Street Photography Now, I think is the title, that has the Matt Stewart cover with the pigeon. So that was the introduction to street photography to me. So I tried to include people in my frames. And that was not the first street photo I took, but it's one of the first which made me realize that, oh, it is kind of interesting to include people in the frame. Okay. Then back in Germany, I also went to protests, demonstrations, because it gives you, you're basically allowed to take photos, no one bothers you, it's good practice. I also wanted to pursue photojournalism. That was one of my big dreams, until I realized that you need a lot of money first to finance your project, to sell it, then sell it to publishers. Because my photography teacher, who was also a photojournalist, he was hired by Spiegel, all these magazines, and he flew to other countries. But that time is definitely over, and I was just broke. I couldn't afford it. I didn't even have a driver's license or car. So whenever I attended some public events, all the photojournalists would already transmit their photos via their, the antennas. What is it called? The backpacks that sent their photos to the agencies. So yeah, but I still did it because it's good practice, and I just love to do it. This particular protest was I think it was also around 2015 or 16. We had this immigration crisis in the borders of Europe, and particularly in Greece. And this group that was organizing this event, they wanted to raise awareness of the ships drowning on the coast. So they did a symbolic funeral on top of or in front of the Reichstag. What is it in English? It's where all the politicians sits. Parliament, yeah, exactly. So they went to the parliament, and you see here they just, ran over the fences, and then it got a little wild. So everyone was like, okay, quick, they had shovels, and so this is not allowed, so this is illegal. But the GR gave me a few benefits here, because as you can see here, other people were also taking photos, of course. And because it's illegal, the people doing these graves, they didn't want to be photographed. And they also told me, don't take our picture. But because I was with them on the ground and I had my small camera, maybe they thought I'm one of them. So I was able to take photos a little more intimate than the others maybe. So these three, for example, they didn't even see me. They didn't even look at me. So symbolic funeral. And it's not 100% the equipment that I was using, but just for size comparisons. On the right, my 5D, and usually a wide angle. I also had a 35. These two were my main lenses, and then the GR, and it's the wide angle conversion lens also. That's my wife. I'm only showing this because she works at the opera in Hamburg, and because I call this presentation behind the scenes, this is also something that not many people see. She's playing the organ and the piano, and I was able to take photos sometimes behind the scenes. I'm not allowed to show them or publish them because they have their own photographer, but no one sees that I'm taking photos. Here, for example, she was in Berlin to play for a workshop, and I had two options. Either I go to the city and for 2 hours and do some street photography, enjoying myself, or I stay with her 2 hours and then we go home afterwards. And I thought about going to the city, but it was more outside of the city, and it would take me too much. It wouldn't be worth it. So I thought, okay, I stay. But I had my GR, but I wasn't really thinking that I will get anything interesting. But 2 hours and boredom can make you creative. So I tried to make the most out of it. And obviously I took photos of the hands. I have photos of her as well. And because the piano is so reflective, I thought, oh cool, I can use that to take some reflection photos. Then I noticed that I can show her while also showing the dancers. And then and then I was sitting there and taking photos. They were jumping around, and I was just like snap, snap, snap. And then one of the frames was this one. I don't know. I think it looks interesting because everyone is like frozen, and I think it was an exercise to synchronize themselves. I just love this photo. It's just a little surreal and feeling. And again, I didn't expect to take any interesting photos, but with the GR, it's easy to experiment. Can you guys see here? Yeah, I'm going to go this way. This is again in Berlin. This is a camera store owner. It's called Safe Light Berlin. It's a very hipster camera store in Berlin. They sell a lot of analog cameras. And I visited their first headquarters, they were just doing an online store at that moment. But I already knew that they are going to open up a real store. So I visited them, and I just wanted to take a photo because I'm sure for him, or I hope, it serves as a nice memory. And yeah, that's what I like about the GRs. You can capture things quickly that can still be impactful or memorable later for someone. Okay, so we arrived at the main story. That was, I think, also around 2014, 15. So a friend of mine had a friend who also had a friend who I think also had a friend who told the friend that also told, you know what I mean. Basically, I heard from a friend that There's some Russian guy who hires students or people to go to a music festival to work as a security staff or security guard. And we would get like 300 euro for the weekend. And at that time I was already freelancing, but I still had my barista job, and it was kind of cliche, but that was what I was doing. And I thought, okay, a weekend on a music festival, 300 bucks, I do it. A few of my friends also joined. And first they promised us that we are going to stay at a hotel and there will be food and we just need to work, like full day and maybe the night. Okay, so just going to show you the experience because it wasn't that great, but because I have these images now, I'm glad that I did it. Okay, so the first thing I noticed was these, when you camp, you have these mats, sleeping bags, yeah. So I thought, oh, why do we need sleeping bags? We're going to stay at a hotel, right? And the organizers didn't really tell us what's going on. I think they were a little under stress. And on top of that, not much space, but yeah, not really a good start. This is at some gas station, I think. And a lot of them were also underage, 15, 14, so kids basically. So they didn't really know what they got themselves into. I love this moment because we just found out that, yeah, there's definitely not going to be a hotel for us. And the music festival was near Amsterdam. So we finally arrived after 4 or 5 hours or so. I think it was longer. It felt like an eternity. And we arrived at this big grass field. We couldn't see anything. And then, we had to wait for the other cars, which took another 1 or 2 hours. And it was already like 3 or 4 a.m. in the morning. You can see it's, getting bright outside. Some people would start drinking or smoking. But I just wanted to sleep because I knew in 3 or 4 days I have to work like an 18-hour shift. So it would have been nice to sleep, right? And yeah, I had my GR with me, and the only thing I could do was take photos on my GR because that was pre-smartphone times. I mean, smartphones were out, but I still had a little flip phone. So no way to entertain myself other than taking pictures. This is one of the guys who organized this. He was also done. Yep, some vodka bottles. Some people slept in the car, and I was really envious of that. And then we finally got some mats, but it was already too late. The day started. Like, there's no point on sleeping now. Okay. So this is the organizer. So we were pretty pissed off, but we were basically under his power control because we can't escape, right? We don't know where we are. We have no cars. And then there were also some girls in our group, and if it weren't for them, we probably wouldn't even get these sleeping bags and mattresses because they were really complaining loudly, or I think they said stuff like, "Oh, you promised us a hotel, like what is this shit?" And then someone said, "Okay, let me get these sleeping bags," and because we had to wait for them and someone was taking their time. And then we had also some tents, and we set up our camp, and that is where we slept later. Okay. Yeah, music festivals are not the cleanest places with the most hygiene. Oh, sorry, I know it's disgusting. This is not mine. I just saw it when I wanted to take a shower. And then a friend of mine took my GR and he took a photo of me trying to shave myself. This was pre-mustache era. And then we got some badges for the festival. And then slowly the first visitors came. We got our vests. Yeah, you can see they're mostly kids, and yeah. So that's the festival's name. Maybe you know it. And yeah, the guests, of course, they were in a good mood, not like us. And then the festival slowly started, and we all got assigned different spots where we have to stand and just see that no one is coming in or out. I think this was before my shift really started, and I just walked around a little to take some photos. That's me. I was glad that I was not in his shoes, because he was standing right next to the speakers. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure this is where I had to stand for the next 10 or 15 hours at least. And I wasn't even allowed to sit. Of course, as a security guard, you have to stand. If you sit, it doesn't look good. But you know, sometimes you want to sit a little bit. And then I remember I was doing this, and then the organizer, he came and he was like, asshole. Because there was no one who I could ask, you know, can I go to the toilet? Can I get something to drink? We were pretty much on our own. And then it was slowly becoming dark. Then I had to go to a different position, and I took a quick few snaps. And then I was here behind the stage. Yeah, pretty boring, nothing going on. The DJs or artists would go through here to go to the stage, and I couldn't find it anymore. But I got one photo of the stage. Like, I just sneaked in and took a photo, but I couldn't find it anymore. And then I'm pretty sure I was one of the last on the festival, because no one picked me up, and I was like, okay, I guess when you see this, I guess it's over. At that point, I was also so pissed off and exhausted by this whole experience that I decided I'm just going to find the camp and take some photos on the way. These were buses or shuttle buses who brought the guests back to, I imagine, the train station or something like that. Oh, one of the attendees promised to bring me a beer when my shift is done. So he told me, he asked me, how long are you going to stay here? I said, probably the next 6 hours. And he said, I will come back and bring you a beer. And he really did. So that was nice. One last selfie before going back to the camp. And this is when I arrived. I was soaked. And again, it's already the next day. So I'm pretty sure this is the last, yeah. And this is just, you know, the moment of exhaustion, and after that we went home. Okay, so a few words on this. This is the last frame, by the way. Yeah, this made me realize how powerful the GR is, because none of these of the organizers noticed or recognized me taking photos. I'm sure they wouldn't like it, because it was basically not it was not legal work. You probably have a term for it. It's Schwarzarbeit in German. So of course they wouldn't be happy with me taking pictures, but because no one really sees that you have a camera in your pocket, there was not an issue for me. So after this, I came back home, and I thought, oh, what a weekend! I will never do this again. But later, a few weeks later, I saw the images, and I thought, oh, it's a kind of a nice memory, even though I suffered a lot, but I was able to document my suffering and maybe show my son someday that I also used to work shitty jobs. So, and then after that, I incorporate more people in my street photographs. Yeah, this is basically why I love the GR so much. You can take photos everywhere, and you can create your own little personal stories.
Write your story.
I have photos of the birth of my son that I'm not going to show here, but yeah, so many memories I captured because of this one. So that's basically it. Thank you. Fine. Only 10 minutes over.
That's really good. Thank you very much. Where's your camera? Yeah, very good. Done.
Perfect. Thanks very much, guys.